Hi everyone, welcome back to one of our discussions with Peter Ingle and myself, Mihai Algiu. And if you just come to this talk, just know that just here below there's a playlist reigniting the fragments of the fourth way, where we have close to 50, 60 in-depth discussions, podcast about the most important ideas of the fourth way, non-duality, exercises, practices that will help for anybody who is studying the fourth way teaching or non-duality or is interested in awakening. This can act as a compendium, so to say, to the master's books. So we'll get straight into it today. So Peter, we were contemplating what are the important topics to tackle, and you suggested to the topic of death. So yeah, I agreed, and let's tackle that. I mean, it's a mysterious topic, it's a big topic, it can be heavy topic, it can be liberating topic. In various traditions, so death is one of the only things that we are certain of. Dying, the fact that this body is going to die is one of the very few certainties we have.
And yet it's also one of the things we know the least about, which is curious. It's the most certain and the least known.
Mm.
And this is what kind of was drawing me to the topic in a deeper way recently. Yes, and we speak, as you say, we've talked about everything else. We've talked about a lot of big topics that encompass the fourth way and encompass the system, but also details about the system itself. But this death, this word, of course, death. What is death? We know the body will disintegrate. We know it will cease operating. The brain and the heart will turn off and the blood will stop flowing and all of that. What I was trying to, not trying, what was happening was I was having more perceptions about death in terms of awareness. What is the relationship of awareness what is awareness in relation to death, the physical death? And there are so many notions about this in literature and in religion. What happens after death? Is there proof of existence of after death? Can you contact someone who has died? Can someone who has died contact you? Can there be communication? Can there be transmission, direct or indirect? Is there proof of this? Do we know this? What about the morality surrounding death? For example,
Mm.
the Buddhists, they have their morality. It's called karma. The Catholics, they have purgatory. You do well, you're going to go to heaven. If not, you're going to have to go through this purgatory. It's going to be tough, etc. Christians, hell, damnation, or heaven, and be in heaven with all your friends and with Jesus and live in paradise in heaven, the kingdom of heaven. All these things, they're all related. They all have similar actual morality surrounding them. And it comes back then to behavior. If
Mm.
you behave a certain way during your earthly life, you can win paradise or win the kingdom of heaven or win joining Buddha, or you can win maybe not having to suffer karma, suffer another life, and all this. When you start looking at this more carefully, it becomes really fascinating because it's all mind created. These are all concepts. So the question is, what is the reality about this death? And what is the reality about awareness? Why is this door closed to us while we're living an earthly life? Why is it we can't see behind this curtain or through this door, beyond this door? So these were all things I was thinking about, but primarily thinking awareness. We talk about it, but ultimately what we're kind of moving toward, to use that expression, is a Awareness realizing itself, knowing itself without relation to anything else. It's not attached to anything. It doesn't experience itself through any kind of form. Theoretically, that's what we're talking about here. So, and we're just talking about now awareness right now confined in a human body and a human mind, in a human psyche, the feeling of I. What about the rest of this universe? What's going on? What's this have to do with awareness? Can awareness go on to experience itself in relation to other forms, higher dimensions? See, this I have more questions really than answers. And I just thought it would be interesting to cast some light on this topic from these different directions. And then, of course, does it matter? Trying to be more conscious, more awake now, as best as you understand that, does it make a difference when the moment of death arrives? Can consciousness be position itself, know itself in such a way that it would cross that threshold, step through that door differently than the consciousness in someone who has not realized itself hardly at all? And most of the kind of idea, most of it's been conceptual. It's been in the mind. It's been the sense of me. I am conscious. This, as opposed to consciousness itself, formless, empty, silent. However, we use all these words too, but this beingness, this knowingness, can it step through the threshold and into, instead of this being an end, death is often thought of as an end. Instead of it being an end, being a beginning, a new beginning in a whole nother dimension or dimensions. So this is where I was kind of looking at all this from these different points of view. And not to have concrete answers, but just to cast light on it. Because as you say, it can be thought of as something terrible. Some people are having a very unpleasant life. And as you mentioned to me earlier, they want to die. And it has nothing to do with this consciousness. They are just tired. They're worn out. They're suffering. They want to get rid of their suffering. And it may seem very legitimate from that point of view. And then that's another question. Is that legitimate? I'm not a medical doctor or a certified psychologist. I can't speak to the area of suicide, but can that be a harmless thing? Someone's suffering so badly and they take their life, and does that affect consciousness? Maybe not. We don't know. See? So that's what I'm just, as I say, just some fresh light was being cast on this whole thing in myself in relation to my life and my inner work.
Yeah. Yeah, there are so many theories, philosophies, coming from poets, philosophers, sages, old sages. And it's, the fourth way we have this idea it's important not to lie. And the principal aspect of lying in the fourth way is not to talk about things that we do not know and we cannot know as if we know. So I'm aware of this limitation. I'm venturing now in theoretical or intuitive sense, but we really don't know. And so what I usually do in this area, when people ask me about things like that, I tell them, hey man, this is beyond my pay grade. I haven't verified this. However, my intuitive sense, and according to my best resources that I have, like sages, liberated, awakened being, that's what it is said. And I give a little bit of, I listen, I give a little bit of attention to that, because my trusted sources, let's say, said 10 different things. And I have verified 8 of them. I have verified them as true. I have verified it through and through experientially in my life. So I haven't verified the last two, but I'm open to the possibility it may be true, but I don't want to now land on some kind of belief, you know? So I want to put this as a disclaimer.
Yes, yes, well
Discussion.
said, and yes.
You know,
Also, I would add to that, Mihai, I would just add a somewhat of a qualifier, which is all that you said could be stated as a kind of an honest admittance by the mind. I don't know. I really don't know. There are all these, I don't know. And that's how the mind doesn't, I cannot know. Because this is another thing. Some religions, philosophies, etc., say, well, the body may die, but the mind will continue. And the mind, in fact, will inform your so-called next life. It will sort of have all this stuff going on still in the mind, and it will then pass into another body. And so this is very interesting. So that was like an honest admittance, and I endorse it, what you said, coming from the mind. Now, awareness itself, however, can kind of, it's as though the door of death can become more transparent. The more consciousness knows about, this is my experience, the more this awareness, this consciousness knows about itself now, prior to this experience we call death, the more it seems possible. I think that's one way to say it. Possible, if not likely, that it is not perishable in the same way that the body and the mind are. And we can talk about that a little bit more, which is connected to why is this door usually closed to us? It's closed to the mind and to the emotions, to our body, our sensations. It's a solid door for all of them. But for consciousness, it can become more transparent. This is what I propose based on my experience, not as pretending to know something more than others or anything like that. I'm not pretending to know, just saying. That's why this topic is now interesting to me in a new way, in a deeper way.
You know, when I was more involved with Francis Lucille, and I had a period where I would really try to ask him about these things, and ask him about death and things like, well, what happened? What's the difference, let's say, to consciousness of someone that has done inner work, so to say, has done awakening work, and someone that hasn't? What happens at death? What's the difference? What happens to their consciousness? And Francis was always really kind of not really wanting to go into it. He would say things like, well, I guess this is not an urgent question. So it's more in the future. And then he would say, you know, nothing happens to consciousness. Nothing happens to consciousness, you know. But going a little beyond that, he was saying, and part of this non-dual Advaita Vedanta, Ramana Maharishi, Nisargadatta, Atmananda Krishna Menon, the great sages, they are saying that through the process of self-consciousness and getting more consciousness, getting more conscious of itself and its nature and its waking up from the dream of being a person and identifications and all of that, there comes a revelation, not through the mind, but a revelation that what we are, this being, is not a product of the brain. It is not dependent on the brain, because in the scientific paradigm there is this perspective that the consciousness is a product of a sophisticated brain. and therefore has the fate of the body. So if somebody hits you with a 2x4 strong enough on the head, then consciousness will stop. So in the usual scientific paradigm, consciousness is limited, personal, perishable, and suffers the fate of the body. From the higher teachings, one will get the revelation if one is really interested and honest and practice and have a love of truth. One may get the revelation in this life or the next that which is aware right now is not depending on the body, is not depending on the brain. The body and the brain came later. Consciousness was first. And a further revelation is that that which is aware right now is not limited, is not personal, and it is absolutely not affected by the death of the body and the death of the character, the person. So it's worth saying that.
Yes.
It's like the good news.
Also, it's also interesting, is it not, that awareness, and as you know, I use awareness and consciousness interchangeably. But anyways, that this awareness is saddled to this horse. During the earthly life, we cannot just leave it. Now you can have states of being, let's call them, where you actually lose relationship to your body for all practical purposes for a period of time, a few seconds, a few minutes. You're not even aware that you have a body. You're just aware of being, this presence, this beingness. And the same with the mind. It is possible, but nevertheless, in spite of all that, we are in this earthly realm, experiencing it through this human form, which has a physical and a physiological and a psychological form. To me, this is also very interesting. If awareness will survive, can remain conscious through death, and begin to experience itself in a different world, somehow it's hard to, because it's not the person. Peter doesn't go to heaven. Peter doesn't now rejoin his father who's in heaven, meaning my father and mother, that kind of thing. Well, maybe that's true. I can't say that it's not true. But again, from my point of view of this door becoming more transparent, it's not true. That's an illusion. It's a discomforting illusion to the mind. Nevertheless, an illusion. This is my understanding about it. But for now, here we are in this form, inside this temple.
Well, since we are talking about this, and with the disclaimer that I made, there's this theory that appears in multiple traditions, in Tibetan Buddhism, in in multiple spiritual traditions, respectable, that the quality of one's development, let's say the degree of consciousness of our consciousness, the degree of intelligence, the degree of self-awareness of this consciousness, its level of wakefulness, intelligence, definitely has an impact at death and after the death of the body. This idea appears multiple ways. The theory is that actually, although the body dies, what remains is not just isness, is not just a being, like just being awareness. This being awareness, there is intelligence in it somehow. The idea is that there are some psychic elements that are also remain preserved. And I guess on the other side, I guess those unresolved stuff, or the this unresolved or this seeming personal egoic tendencies of trying to experience something, or trying to fulfill a desire, or trying to attain something, they remain kind of dormant, and then they will somehow generate, will influence our journey in this beyond the body realms. And also, especially if the consciousness is trained. If consciousness is, in the normal person, consciousness is constantly sucked into the appearances, into the dreams, into the thoughts, the feelings. So they are saying, these theories, that at death, such untrained awareness will be sucked into all kind of illusions, just like it has been sucked in illusions all the life. And then it will create certain so-called bardos of realms of illusion, because somehow there's nobody home. And apparently in the body there is a little bit more grounding aspect. There's the body, we can't go too far in illusion. But without the body, one can be lost forever in all kind of imaginary illusory realms. However, someone who has consciousness training, attention training, not to go along with stuff, now they will have a somehow different journey. And if they are instructed to not go along with the touristic, glamorous thing, but to apparently go towards the light, the bright light, to merge with the light, be the light, then one, instead of being lost in illusions, one will kind of merge with source knowingly. There is an interesting idea. And also the state at death, the state of death, it is said in multiple traditions, state of degree of consciousness at death determines what happens in the afterlife. And they don't talk about heaven and hell and all of that. That is more of a religious fairy tale.
Of course, what comes to mind for me, reflecting on some of what you said, is the idea in the fourth way of scale and relativity, which is a big idea. You don't necessarily find it in those terms in other teachings, but it's this idea there are different dimensions, different worlds. They're actually different worlds, inside worlds, different dimensions. And so in our case, we have an ego, which is like kind of this petrified sense of identity in the mind. And it's this identity, this feeling of identity, this ego. And if that, let's suppose at death, that collapses, it's because it is illusory, it is fabricated by the mind. So now, poof, that's gone. Well, there's still another dimension in us, a higher dimension than that, which is just our normal kind of personality, our person. It's not, it's just the person of being a human being. You think about things, you do your responsibilities, you go about living your life as a person. You have this this mask you wear, this personality. And it's a little bit different. It's not as dense, and it's not as petrified, and it's not as heavy, right? But it's still there, let's suppose, for a moment after death. Okay, now what? Then that poof, that disintegrates. Let's just say, let's propose this. Well, there's now another higher world in us. In the fourth way, it's called essence. Now, this is very simple, and it's more than this idea of the inner child. This is a hackneyed expression that's become popular. It really misrepresents to me what essence is actually. It doesn't mean we're all little babies and children. No, it means simplicity. And it means simplicity of identity, simplicity of being. It means it doesn't mean an innocence, but an innocence in the form of an honest not knowing and an honest wonderment about, wow, what is all this? This is what is, it's not even formulated like that in essence. Because even in young children in whom essence is still predominant, the mind is not yet fully formed. I'm talking about infants. The
Hmm.
human mind, it's not even, it doesn't have a formulation of what is that
Hmm.
until they begin to talk and things like that. Before that, it's just innocent wonderment. So
Hmm.
there's this dimension in us. Suppose now then the ego has the ballast of the ego has fallen away like a rocket. It's
Hmm.
fallen away. And now the next stage, the personality, sort of ordinary personalityness falls away. Now there's just this essence, this wonderment. And it's the essence in us is drawn to things unconsciously. It's called we call it fascination in the fourth way. It
Hmm.
means awareness identifies. Starts to become identified. First, it starts to just oh, and then it attaches, and then it becomes identified. It forms a sense of identity in relation to what it is experiencing.
Hmm.
And in fact, this whole idea of self-remembering and being more present is for that to happen in reverse almost, or for awareness to remain conscious of itself and not get lost in thoughts, in emotions, in impressions, in experiences, in people, and so on. And so this now let's suppose that that essence, this is what I think a lot of these theories, ancient theories about death are talking about. That essence does in fact somehow not die immediately, let's call it. It's more, it is verging on the metaphysical. It
Hmm.
is this very much higher dimension in us. And yet, and it seems comprehensible to me that this essence, which is much more formless than our ego and our personality, and of course our body, would be easily drawn into things. I mean, to use a silly example, suppose essence, your essence can really like apple pie. There can be something in essence, just I love apple pie. There's a pleasure in eating apple pie, and it's not gluttony or anything. It just mm, apple pie. For somebody else, it might be chocolate sundaes, or for somebody else, it might be steak. I'm just using food examples right now. For another person, essence might really be drawn to the beach, the ocean, the sunny weather, the sand. There can be a natural, sometimes you'll go somewhere and you'll just feel like you're home. Oh, I love it here. This is your essence usually. Some people's essence like the city. They really like the pace of the city and almost the controlled chaos of the city. Their essence connects to that. So I say all of this to say that it seems likely to me, it is possible. I don't know, of course, but it is possible. It seems comprehensible to me that essence would then be drawn. It's now formless. It's not there's no more body, there's no more mind per se. There's this essence,
Hmm.
this simple innocence, and it becomes fascinating with things, and it could be sucked back into the city or into the beach life, or something. I don't know. But what I'm proposing today is, of course, beyond that too. Awareness itself, without even taking on this form as awareness, which is granted a less solid, a more metaphysical, more ethereal form, nevertheless a form, essence, nevertheless being some kind of form, substance, more rarefied than our mind. And so we're talking about consciousness itself, awareness itself, remaining cognizant of itself even while that's happening during this process called death. And so this brings us back to, well, if someone is more trained, as you say, the consciousness in them is trained. That's what these schools, these traditions, these systems are all about. If you want to use that word training, they're training consciousness, not trying to train the person. The aim isn't for Peter to stop liking apple pie in preparation for death. Let's say, no, it's about awareness, even while Peter's having that apple pie, yummy, yummy, yummy. Awareness sees that and knows it's seeing it and knows it's not that. It's just like Francis said, nothing happens to awareness.
Mhm.
This doesn't have that experience. It's not having the experience of the apple pie. It is it is witnessing it. It is conscious of it. And that can be a marvelous thing, but it never loses itself. It doesn't get lost in the thing. And so then that comes to anything. That can be a cigarette. That can be a glass of whiskey or a glass of wine, or it can be sex. It can be money. It can be all these things. You can be spending a lot of money and having a good time, but consciousness doesn't have to lose itself in
Mhm.
that. So anyway, I've just mentioning this thing about scale and relativity. It's not we go from here and then death, and then we're on the other side of this door, and things haven't really changed much. No, there are a lot of changes,
Mhm.
and we can experience some of them now. We know there are moments when we are more free from the ego, the depths of the ego, the grips, the hold that this feeling of me has over our consciousness. We can feel sometimes when it's released. And now we're lighter, we're freer, we're happier, we're more seeing and more open, more transparent, more sensitive to other, all these things. We can experience this now. And we can even experience it in relation to this essence I'm referring to, this simple part of our nature that is childlike in the sense of innocence, not childlike in the sense of, oh, I'm a little boy now, my little boy.
Mhm.
No, that's now the personality again. That's in my experience. Essence itself, in its purest form, is it is the simple form of being, and also this is interesting. A lot of these teachings say discovering your real nature, and to me, from my experience and my knowledge, what they're talking about is essence. And there's something beyond essence. It's pure consciousness, pure awareness, and this is what it seems has the capability, the potential to pass through this experience of death and transcend all of these levels, these dimensions of being human. So I could see why it would be a phased, and a lot of the descriptions of this are sort of in stages, phases. It's not an immediate, you step across the threshold and then either you're unconscious and falling back in to another lifetime, another body, or boom, you're
Mhm.
conscious in the, it's not that, it doesn't seem that, it doesn't seem accurate somehow. Again, I don't know for certain.
Yes, I what you are saying actually it's some of my trusted sources they talk about that the physical body finishes, but it has degrees of there's a more subtler body or subtler energy. It takes some time for those to dissolve, and that's why in various ancient rites and ceremonies of burial and such things, they in the past and spiritual traditions they would not bury or burn the body right away. There would be at least like 3 day of vigil. And my current teacher is that's what she does with students, and that what was happening in her community with her teacher. There was a known fact. Basically, when the body died, they will hold a vigil there for 3 days, so to allow for this dying of the body to unwind completely. Apparently, the consciousness is still attached somehow for some time, so it will be go more smoother the travel or the next step if it's not so shocking and jarring with put buried or burned right away.
That makes me think too, Mihai, that the vision that just came to me, or not the vision, the image that just came to me is it's so interesting when someone dies to watch the people who are still alive react to it. Because what you just described, this 3 day or even longer vigil, can be seen, and I believe it is in some traditions seen as we, the living, doing our utmost to actually help the consciousness release.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not clinging to the person.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to hold them to the form of their body or hold them to the form of their mind, or hold them to their essence, their simple wants and desires and little tastes and things. In some religions, I think they leave food at the grave of the person who, and in my mind, it's not good. It's like a temptation based on what I was saying earlier. No, you want to help the highest part of that person, their pure consciousness, escape consciously, with as few attachments as possible. This seems to me a more realistic way of looking at these rituals, these ceremonies. It's not honoring the dead so much as honoring the consciousness that is trying to let go, is trying to release something like this. And this to me does make death emotional and powerful and personal. And that we can actually, from one point of view, in a small way, help someone by letting their consciousness free from the form that we have associated it with all their life. I know this is easy to say, and when it's close to you, and I've been close to it, it's very difficult, but it's also possible. And it doesn't mean you don't feel emotional pain and hurt and anguish and all these things. And instinctively, it's hard when someone close to you is gone because that vacuum is there, it's created, all these things. But it's still possible for this pure awareness to see all of that and keep realizing itself. Yes, it is. This is a big, rich topic, but it's such a mystery. And that's something else. Why is this door closed to us?
Well, I just want to piggyback a little bit more on what you said, your intuitive sense, because in the vigil, more conscious traditions, they recommend to be the dead body to be surrounded by practitioners, not by sentimentalistic people who are like crying and or grieving and wallowing and don't go, please don't go. Oh, what are we going to do without you? So not that. More like practitioners who are in a deep self-remembering and consciousness and like to help releasing them rather than pulling on the strings of their heart, the psychic heart. So this very
And think
important.
about what we're doing during life. During our lives with each other, we're not doing that. We could be doing that now. But we're not. We expect the other person to be the person they appear to be, who we imagine them to be and who they imagine themselves to be. There's a lot of pressure we put on one another in friendships and in relationships to be this form. And as opposed to, I think in the Gnostic Gospels, it was Christ, and he said, people are corpses, really, already, and don't know it. The body is just an empty vessel. The mind is just this configuration with almost these hallucinations, these imaginations, all being fueled by this consciousness. You remove the consciousness from them, they dissipate, they dissolve, as you mentioned earlier, disappear. So these 3 days, for example, could be seen as, let's honor the consciousness in this person such that if the consciousness extracts itself from the mind, all that mind activity that may still be swirling somehow, we are here to encourage the consciousness to retain recognition of itself, not attached to all of that. And if it can release from that, all of that will dissolve. And if the consciousness perhaps is not aware of itself, to put it that way, then perhaps it has no choice but to be pulled back into those very same things in some other form. We don't really know.
In my somehow trusted sources, they are saying that even somebody somebody untrained into the mysteries of consciousness, they are fully identified as a person, and now I'm an old person and poor me and I'm dead. they are saying that as the death is happening, uh, consciousness wakes up from that illusion. So there is a realization, like, whoa, of the truth in some way, that I'm not a person, I am that is aware, or and the
Hmm.
truth of reality, and one is not tortured or like a judgmental God kind of telling your sinful nature. So there's some kind of post-mortem, there is some kind of revelation, realization, healing, some kind of healing in a way that one is shown, so that to maximize the lessons of this life, to see one's life, uh, and then there's some kind of respite, relief, peace, love, all groovy, the bosom of the divine. But however, because somehow that there's something in one's, something unresolved that wants to experience, to go, somehow it's not, is bored with peace of God, then it will bounce out, whoop, to go into go another body, to
Well,
go for
identification
that.
is a form of gravity, in
Yeah.
my view. It's the same law, but in a different dimension. This identification is really, it's like gravity, but in a psychological and metaphysical form, not a
Mhm.
physical, not the physical world form. Well, and of course, you know the story of Christ on the cross. There were two other people being crucified next to him, and one of them had this experience. That's how it's described that you're talking about. And
Mm.
he said to him, "Today you will sit with me next to my Father."
Mm.
Kind of, you see. And he was, it says, the way I interpret it is the consciousness in Christ saw the consciousness in that other fellow realize itself.
Mhm.
And then hence those words. But that's what the authors of that story seem to be trying to convey.
Mm. Now, coming a little bit back towards closer to the fourth way, because the fourth way has some particular data around death, and it's not very flattering, and it's not very happy inducing, somehow, or at least the way Gurdjieff put it. So he was saying that people are interested to survive the death of the body. The principle of consciousness want to survive the death of the body. However, during life, if one spills some coffee on the pants, then one gets really identified, and one loses the principle of self-consciousness just with a little bit of small friction, with a little bit of a trigger, with a little bit of a stimulus, one loses oneself. So how would you expect, Gurdjieff was saying, how do you expect for this principle of consciousness that is so weak and untrained to remain conscious as all of this intense stuff are shutting down? So he was suggesting that the very becoming conscious work, the work with the capital W, is a preparation for strengthening and developing this principle of consciousness, so it can stand alone and be less identified with anything. And thus, if one reaches a certain level of transformation or training, one develops what they call the Kashgian body. Kashgian body, which is the body that is designed to survive consciously the death of the physical body. And that is what they call the astral body. And he was saying that in a popular literature, people already assume they have an astral body. They assume that they have this Kashgian body, but actually this is not true. And the Kashgian body, astral body, is expensive. And one needs to pay in order to develop it, pay through conscious effort. It's not automatic.
This is very interesting. And yes, the fourth way, in fourth way language, terminology, this astral body really refers to essence. This is my understanding. It is essence fully conscious. and it is like a body inside the physical body. It's a different thing, and that, but then there are higher bodies than that in the fourth way, and it's not unique to the fourth way either. That beyond the astral body, there's a mental body, and it doesn't mean the mind. It means even a higher level of intelligence, of consciousness, that is more knowing of itself. Anyways, and so yes, so everyone has an essence, and so everyone has this kind of material, you could say, for the astral body to form itself from. But that, according to the fourth way, that doesn't happen without this consciousness realizing itself, which is what self-remembering is really about. Self-remembering really begins in a real way in this essence, our essence, this simple essence, recognizing itself. And then it can go much farther.
You know, this idea, there's a spiritual master, Aditya Samraj. He wrote a very thick book, maybe 800-page book called Easy Death.
800 pages on easy death. I like that.
No,
I don't know this
actually,
book.
it's a powerful book. I recommend. Easy Death, the wisdom, I forgot the subtitle, but the wisdom to transcend death and everything else. And then he was talking about that in order to have an easy death, that depends on how one lives one's life, and not in terms of behavior or ethics, but he was talking about this practicing one's life, the transcendence of all phenomena. Not transcendence to bounce out to avoid, but non-identification, the principle of consciousness to not get identified, and to use this life to deepen that non-identification, transcendence, which brings also an expansion rather than your small and tight shoes. It's an expansion of love, of truth, of understanding. So then if one does that all one's life with the trained attention, then that will be a smooth, easy death. It's interesting. I have a book here from Pema Chodron that says, how we live is how we die. I haven't read it yet, but I got it on the subject.
Yes, but it speaks to what you were just saying, not how we live in terms of our behavior and our lifestyle choices and our viewpoints and all that, but this consciousness, awareness, coming to know itself. Yes, and you could say, and many have said before, that that's what our life is really about. In its highest aspect, that's what life is really about. It's this preparation, it's this conduit, it's this magic vessel that can produce this more the consciousness can come to realize itself inside this vessel, and then escape the vessel knowingly and remain intact and remain aware, and, for lack of a better expression, go on to a more expanded experience of reality, in reality, as reality, and so on. But also, you know, we talk often in spiritual circles about this idea of your story. You have to give up your story of Peter, your story of Mihai, your story of Ellen, whoever you are. The story is keeping awareness bound. And so we have to let go of this story. And in fact, this applies to our entire life. Our whole life is a story. And to me, this is one way to understand why this door is closed to the mind, particularly because, you know, what I'm going to say is this: because it's a dream, but it's not the same kind of dream we have at night. It's consciousness is dreaming in a way. It's not the right word, even as I understand it, but it's akin to the mind dreaming at night, but it's very different. It's from a different dimension. But think about this. Can you remember a dream you had when you were 8 years old? I can't. I mean, I don't, maybe if I had a really strong nightmare or wonderful dream, I might remember it. But it's just for the purpose of saying we don't remember most of our dreams. And there are a lot of people who try to remember all their dreams every night, write them down and explore their dreams and all this. And it's kind of like clinging on to them in a way. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm not poo-pooing that idea. There's said to be some merit in it also, but I'm just saying be careful. You don't stay attached to your own dream world. The same is true of our consciousness, that consider that this whole life, Mihai, will disappear like a dream. There will be nothing to attach to come back into. Let's consider the possibility for a moment there's no such thing as karma, lifetimes, hell, heaven, in the way that's normally thought of, and that all of this disappears. Just as awareness would disappear in relation to all of this, it would just, who knows, go where and what dimension. But this idea, it will all disappear. And that's why, from one point of view, why we can't see beyond this door, because there is nothing to see. There is nothing, especially for the mind, to see. There's nothing. It will just all disappear. It's hard to imagine this, to envision this. I look out and I see the sky and the ocean and the breeze blowing and the trees and you, my body, all this. But from a higher dimension, this all seems very tangible to the mind and body. But for awareness, oddly enough, it's not tangible. Awareness never really touches it, strangely enough. It does identify with it. That's a different thing. But it doesn't. It's not of this world. It's not of this dimension, this awareness. There's so much more for it to know about itself, is what I see. We're just really beginning.
Since we're on this topic, I have talked to several people, like spiritual teachers, who seem that they had their consciousness training reached a certain level of maturity where there is absolute verification, that revelation of verification that consciousness is immortal and it's not affected by any of that. So therefore they are completely free of fear of death. They are completely free of it. And they are like, I remember David Hawkins sometimes he will be pretty old and he will be in a lecture and then he will say later, I felt like, maybe it's time, and I go. It's like, yeah, so that's an interesting, seems like the reward of this to be completely free of fear of death, which is so repressed. Actually, it's very repressed in a normal humanity, and it's highly disturbing for the sense of the person or the ego. And at a certain level of verification, one knows. So now then where will my fear go if I know that I was never this thing, and I will, yeah, it's worth mentioning.
And I also feel that things like this fear of death, like any kind of fear starts to arise in the body like a sensation. And this can happen in the psyche too, in our psychology, in the mind. We will be worried about something. For example, from the mind's point of view, death being so unknown, uncertain, a lot of negative imagination. It can entertain a lot of negative imagination. And then that can exacerbate any kind of instinctive worry or anxiety, especially if you're ill, if you're closer to death, for example. And so in my experience, the fear, or let's say the impulses behind the fear, may still come. But what happens is awareness, again, sees it knows it's not that and doesn't put its hooks in. And by virtue of not putting its hooks in, it means that the identification can't happen. So the impulses being felt from the body or from the mind don't go anywhere. They don't form as a sense of identity, being worried or being afraid. But those, and so it's like anything, the less you're identified with it, the more it sort of starts to fall away. It's not that you, the person, this is my experience, don't become unafraid. It's not that you become unafraid. No more fear, no more anxiety, no more worry, no more. That those still are there, but they diminish. They don't necessarily disappear altogether, because there are occasions when those impulses will come, because we do have a human body and a mind, but awareness doesn't hook, doesn't attach. As Nisargadatta said, the world is made of rings. Unbend your hooks. And this is this not being identified. You're releasing your hook on the ring. So this impulse may still come of some kind, but you don't grab it.
Yeah.
The ultimate one being death, perhaps, would seem. Yes.
Yeah, this reminds me, some of the viewers maybe are familiar with this, the toad medicine or 5-ME or DMT, which is supposed to be a practice in dying. It's a practice of dying and the ego completely shutting down. And it's supposedly it's the Everest of psychedelics that just do it very responsibly in a right context. But anyway, I was doing that maybe for the fifth, sixth time in my life, and each time I've done it was very consciousness expanding, yet very unpleasant at the level of the body. And each time I survived it, so I came back, everything was fine. So, but last time, I remember I was talking to you, I was afraid. I was like so intense, the fear in my
Before
body.
you went in.
Before I will go
Yeah.
in
Yeah, I
for
remember that.
hours. And then, so I was really fear, although I knew that I'm going to be okay. I know it's going to be okay. But it was this fear of this. And actually it was great practice to just feel the fear, not wrap around it, to let it happen, not avoid it, but not hook into it and be the witness of it. That was great. It was like hours of that, to the point that it was getting better at it, and also the fear would diminish. So that's the same, in the same way, this fear of death. I wanted to bring here the last few minutes something now, maybe at a lower level or something more practical.
Yeah, I just want to say, this to me is so practical also. If more people really entertain the reality of this unknown and what it means now, what are the ramifications now? Are there any? And it's like a big window. It's not a little black hole, is how I see it. It's tremendous, the possibility. But I don't think we even can comprehend the possibilities of a conscious death. What all that implies, even that remains unknown to us. So, but
Yeah,
anyway,
actually,
I've said this. You want to go on to something more earthly practical, I guess.
yeah, but actually you touched upon it. That's exactly what I want to say. In various traditions, in a Christian or Christian mystical or esoteric Christianity, in Tibetan Buddhism, in Fourth Way, in various traditions or philosophies, ancient philosophies, there is this practice to consciously, intentionally remember death. Memento mori, remember death. The Tibetan monks, sometimes they will die and then they will be there for quite some time. So other monks will watch the decaying body, so that they are
Hmm.
slapped in the face with the reality that, hey, this is going to happen. This is the context of our life
Hmm.
somehow. Also, yeah, Jed McKenna was a spiritual teacher. He was saying this that, yeah, the death and dying, especially in our culture, is highly repressed. You don't see old people. There's no burials. It's all hidden, especially in America. It's not like in India, you see all of this all over the place. It's all hidden and just young, beautiful people outside, and all the advertisements is denying that completely. Yeah, even the whole medical system denies that. And
Hmm.
anyway, Jed
And the
McKenna was
insurance industry
right.
is trying to say it won't ever happen. You're protected. Yeah, it's very interesting.
So he was saying that the ego has certain protective mechanism to avoid this unpleasantness, to protect oneself against this ego suffering, which can actually be a great gift. We protect itself in different ways. One way is that by imagining that, well, it's going to happen later. It's going to happen later. I don't have to worry about it now. Yeah, so I'll deal with it later. This is one. Second is that I take on some religious, spiritual belief according to which is going to be okay, which is soothing. So then again, and the third one is just distracted, completely distracted all the time, forgetting about it all the time. And he was saying that these attitudes are a big obstacle on an awakening path. And he was recommending this, the remembrance of death. Although write it down, tattoo it, whatever, put in the back pocket. Keep remembrance of death in the back pocket. Gurdjieff himself, in Beelzebub's Tales, if you remember, after 1300 pages of description how humanity is so twisted and miserable and asleep, and after all of this, Beelzebub's grandson asks Beelzebub, like, Grandpa, is there any chance for these people? Is there any possibility that humanity may change and get kind of closer to the truth, to the law of the divine? Anything that can be done? And this is like the last, I think, the last chapter of Beelzebub's Tales, Gurdjieff's book. And Beelzebub paused for a long time and said, yeah, there is something. If they could remember every day that they are going to die, if they will maintain that as an emotional remembrance, that will be a good catalyst for them to become more conscious and then use the life to grow, to wake up, to. So that's what I want to bring. If you have experience with this, actually in my group I work with, this is our monthly exercise to go against the grain and to remember death every day, a few times a day. Not to go morbid or to go into despair or to kind of go into sentimentalistic illusion, but just as a shock to disrupt this illusion, the illusion that my life in the future and Mihai in the future and this, I don't know, this oblivion and wasting the day. Do you have any experience with this or any thoughts on this?
I don't have a token or anything that I keep in front of me in my pocket, literally, or on the desk or in the hallway or something to remind me. I, it circulates in my mind, let's call it, yes, fairly often as a truth. Like that's the only thing I can say. I mean, I was walking down the stairs this morning and just realizing awareness, realizing it was not the body walking down the stairs. It's kind of the same thing. The body is already just seeing it. And something I have tried, I don't do it consistently, but I have tried it before, I think it comes from Ramana Maharshi, is when you get in bed at night, lie down, get in bed, and try to see yourself as a corpse
Hmm.
lying there. And this can be very interesting. And the same something else I have done is in the morning get up and turn back around at the bed where I had been lying and kind of see that I had been lying there, that the body had been lying there like a corpse, inert, quote unquote dead. Also, I will say, without going into personal details, I've had a couple of very strong experiences where I thought I was going to die. And this is hugely powerful. And uh, you mentioned earlier, Francis said, well, this isn't an urgent topic. And I liked his response very much. At the same time, in those moments, it is an urgent topic. And there's something about those moments, if you're honest with yourself, they never leave you. And you remember what what was happening and what your relationship to it was. And so that to me is very strong fertilizer for this, keeping this idea afresh, keeping it a front of mind, as they say.
Mhm.
Also, I must say, the more they go hand in hand. They're kind of the same thing. Realizing how precious and beautiful life is automatically kind of makes you aware of death, that it's, you don't see anything permanent.
Mhm.
It's all moving, always transitioning, transforming. And then I spend time in the garden doing physical labor under the direction of my gardening wife. I'm her labor. And I watch the garden change. And you watch the flowers come and you watch them die.
Mhm.
You watch the animals eating one another. You see all these things. It's very interesting. And so
Yeah,
living life richly can also be kind of it's the other side of the hand of
yeah,
realizing about death. Yes.
yeah. There are cells dying right now, millions of cells dying right now, but the body doesn't die. Or the leaves are dying, falling, the tree doesn't die. Even if the trees died, nature doesn't die. So there's this world, cosmos within cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
What seems death at a certain scale is just a cycle of the divine at a bigger scale. It's just a movement. Well, I had another thought that left me, so it died. It's interesting. Somebody asked Francis about death and all of that. He was saying with all the time death is happening, that every thought is dying, every emotion is dying, every everything is dying. We are experiencing dying all the time from the point of view of consciousness, and as consciousness remains.
Yes, that in itself is so amazing, isn't it? Yes, this brings us back to what is consciousness? What is awareness? Unto itself, all of this is happening, and all of this dies moment to moment, and the consciousness is just there, steady. And it really seems like the whole thing is really just about consciousness knowing itself more and more and more deeply in itself as itself without relation to form, all this creation. Yeah, it's well beyond the mind to comprehend. It's already amazing. It can frame these ideas as well as it can. It's already very impressive, but it's not. Doesn't even come
Yeah.
close.
I was thinking, I think the other day, that, okay, what if all of these are theories coming from a, what if we die and that's it? Over, over, game
Yes,
over,
yes,
completely,
game over.
forever. Okay, so then would I still be doing this work? Or
Yes.
I'm getting lollipop for the future, reward, investment in the kingdom of heaven real estate. And I realized, okay, even if we die and that's it, this work, I mean, I'm much more at peace. I'm much more available to friends to see the beauty. I'm less tortured by my own mind. So this awakening, this becoming more conscious, is still makes a lot of sense because it's a richer, fuller, happier, more peaceful, harmonious life.
Yes, and it's more interesting than anything else. I wouldn't want to give this up.
Hmm. Mhm.
Yes. What you say, I've thought about it in those terms too. I'm sorry we didn't catch this on the recording. This idea.
Oh,
Game over.
we are not recording. I thought
I thought you ended it.
no, we are still recording.
Oh, I thought I clicked on OK. Is it being recorded? Good. So
Yeah.
I'm glad then I didn't know that. But I'm glad we caught it because this idea game over doesn't matter. And there are some people who think that they think I'm just going to go ahead and live my life, have a great time, do whatever I want to do, full abandon, full recklessness because it's fun. So what? What does it matter? Maybe it doesn't matter. However, I know without question the difference between passing through moments of my day more aware and less aware. And I choose the more because it's more real.
Yeah.
This awareness is real. It's very real and it doesn't it doesn't transition the way everything else is transitioning around me and inside me. Mm.
Oh yeah, I remember that thought. Actually, this is again a little kind of practical from like awakened shadow work point of view.
Mm.
Like one can kind of drop in, or I will actually do this with some people soon. And as they are in meditative state, I will conjure up this idea that they are going to die. We're going to die.
Mm.
And I'm going to throw certain statements into the aware space that is going to evoke this fear. It's going to evoke, it's going to unpleasantness. And actually, I noticed within myself as we were having this talk, sometimes there were like a little energy in the belly, in the chest, a little unpleasantness, you know. So that's a great practice to stir this consciously, and then this unpleasantness in the body, that is residual of the sense of ignorance. That is still residuals of the consciousness is believing to be the body. And so we can practice with this now. You know, we can, instead of avoiding it and pretending it never happens, we can stir it a little bit sometimes and practice dying through it, not identifying with it, not avoiding it, facing it. You know, in this way we keep releasing these residuals.
We can do the same thing in relation to desires, small desires. I'll notice sometimes if I've made some dinner and it's cooked and I'm getting ready to put it on the plates for us to eat. If I've been the chef that evening, kind of want to just pick up a little piece of something and nibble on it.
Mm.
Cut a little piece of that steak that just came off the grill and just enjoy the end of it there before I serve the plate. So, and it's a simple thing, but to sometimes not to do that,
Mm.
to wait 30 seconds or a minute,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
just to watch that, how strong even something that like that can draw you in. And so it's a little thing, but it can be very practical. To not, it doesn't mean don't honor your desires, don't give way to your desires. Postpone them
Mm. Mm.
for half a minute
Mm.
or a minute. And it's like a negative emotion. If you postpone your indulgence in the negative emotion, it will start to dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you indulge it, it intensifies.
Mm.
The same, these desires, and we mentioned this before this video started. We're going to talk about that perhaps as another topic, but it
Yeah.
just comes to mind here.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of postponing just for a little while
Mm-hmm.
for the purpose of watching the identification, watching how attachment happens, how consciousness, awareness latches on and becomes that thing, that person doing that thing, needing that thing, wanting that thing.
We call it even in psychology, surfing the urge.
Surfing?
Surfing the urge. The urge is there, want something, don't do what it says, just observe it. This is more like addiction compulsions, but that for
Yes,
us
yes,
it should be day to day.
yes. Yes, we're not trying to make the urge go away. We're not even trying to conquer it, really. We're trying to conquer ourselves, our awareness in relation to the urge. That's how I see it. Yeah.
All right, Peter, let's stop here. Thank you once again.
Yes, thank you, Mihai.
Bye bye. And if viewers, you have some questions of topics of interest connected to what we are talking here, please feel free to make a comment. We can answer some interesting questions. Bye.